to another episode of I Take
D.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Carla.
And here we are. This is episode 2 of season 4.
That's right,
Man,
season 4.
Can you believe it? We made it to season 4.
I know.
This is pretty wild. As we share with you, this is the I Take D ministry. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Hit the little like button. Share with others. We're no experts. We're just sharing our own experiences so that others can see that you're not alone. You trust me, you're not alone.
No, you're not.
We all go through the struggles. We all go through our ups and downs, and the times where we want to say I love you 1,000 times, and the times we want to say I don't even want to see you right now. And that's okay. That is part of marriage. That's part of that journey that we take.
It sure is.
So today, our topic is apologies. We've talked about forgiveness, but when we talked about forgiveness, we were just giving people tips on what it is to forgive. In this episode, in our apologies, we want to talk a little bit more about what it is, the art of apology. How do you really apologize? But just understanding that there is different types of apologies, right? Like there's times where you might be apologizing, but the person feels that you're not, and it all has to do with the style of apology.
Yeah, and throughout the episode today, we also wanted to just give you some insights of what not to say when you're apologizing.
Oh.
Sometimes, we tend to say certain things because we think at the moment is a good way of responding back to your spouse. But you'll be surprised of certain things that you're probably already doing when you're apologizing. There are actually don'ts to do in a relationship because your other spouse will kind of feel that your apology was not genuine.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I want to just quickly give a shout out to our good friends, Jess Marie and Jose. One, because Jess Marie actually did this for us.
Yes,
she
she
made
did.
this beautiful piece for us here. And they're just talented
She's
people.
just really talented.
She's very talented. She's out of Jess Sweets and Crafts. Jess, Jess, and then another S, Sweets and Crafts. And let me tell you, she has done some amazing work for us. We are really so grateful to have them in our lives, and many others. There's so many couples that we've actually brought into our show.
That's right.
And so we want to thank everyone who's been very supportive of this ministry.
That's right. Thank you for appreciating, hitting the share, hitting the like, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and share with other couples. Having a candid conversation about things that happen in our daily lives that, again, we're not experts, but we just want to share our experiences. And if it can help you, great.
Well, let's talk about it.
That's right.
I mean, that's what people are here for. What do we have? What do we have?
So we're going to talk about apologies, and I know sometimes this is so difficult when you are in the middle of a conflict and now someone has to apologize, right? Because one of the things that we have learned in our own marriage is like, even if we're not at fault, if I'm not at fault, or I feel like I'm not at fault, because sometimes we always feel like we are the victim. You offended me, you hurt me, and usually that's just your own emotions. But sometimes when you feel that way and you probably are not the one that offended, always having that act to say I'm sorry and how to apologize to your spouse. And how do you begin to do that and that is genuine? But we have to also share that there are so many languages of apologizing. And sometimes just because someone says, I'm sorry, and that's it, I'm sorry with a period at the end and nothing else, does not mean all the time that person is not truly being genuine about their apology.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've been there myself. I'm like, people see me speak at different places and they think that I really like, I like public speaking, or I like being in front of others, or that I always have the right words to say or eloquent words to use. But my wife knows I'm a person of very few words. And so there are moments that I'm sorry, my apology is probably as simple as it's gonna get at that moment, but it's what I feel in my heart. And so I just don't have anything else to say other than I am sorry. I mean, obviously there are moments where I can say why I'm sorry and I can share in details with my wife about it. But yeah, there are moments where I just say, you know what, honey, I'm very sorry.
Yeah, and sometimes for us as our spouses, either the husband or their wife, and it's like, but that's not enough. that is when we're wrong, right? Because what do we know about being enough? Just because we want to feel like you have to say more for me to accept the apology. Sometimes we have to read our spouses. Every spouse is different. My husband is not the person that talks a lot. For all those who may know him, well, that's not Joel. Well, that is Joel in our relationship, and he always been like that in our relationship. So I had to learn how to know my spouse, and especially when it comes to apology. Because if we run into a conflict and he was just like, well, I'm sorry for I'm sorry for that, and that's it. I need to know, knowing my spouse that is the joining answer. And also about, taking that apology, however it comes, is with grace, and always giving your spouse a benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, that whole word grace, right? It's so hard sometimes, because when we talk about grace, we're talking about giving somebody something they don't deserve. And so when we hurt someone, we don't deserve for them to accept our apologies, but we take it with a little bit of grace and say, you know what? Yeah, and that person doesn't deserve, my spouse probably at that moment does not deserve the apology, or for the apology to be accepted, but neither does your apology when you're on the other end, right? Like, sometimes it's important to put yourself in their shoes, and recognize that, that there are moments where people don't even say I'm sorry. So the fact that person took the next step to saying I'm sorry, and with that, we're not trying to say that, because there's folks who continue to do things and then they just say I'm sorry to kind of cover that. That's not what we're talking about here.
No, that is not at all what we're covering. What we're saying, if you know your husband or your wife is not the person that is too talkative, that it says, I'm really sorry. It's about really finding the areas of your spouse that okay, this is genuine, and always giving them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, you are sorry. And for us, it's not just to cut them off, because sometimes I'm sorry is not enough. Sometimes we'll jump the gun right away and say, I'm sorry is not enough. I can't accept your apology. I don't think that's enough for me. Then when you have those conversations with your spouse, what is enough for you, right? Have you had those conversations with your husband or with your wife to say, you know what, when you did this, when you hurt me, when you hurt my feelings, and you said I'm sorry, period, that meant to me that you were not really sincere. And then you begin to unlayer that I always say, unlayer those onions. Onions have so many layers, right? You begin to unwrap that conversation and that conflict. And now your husband is probably going to tell you, or your wife is going to tell you, well, I don't know what else to say, right? And that's going to lead to another conversation of like, what would be not what you want me to say, right? Let me be really clear on that. It's not what you want your spouse to say, but you want to have a conversation with your husband or wife to say, what will make you feel like my apology was sincere? I think that is the question we need to begin to ask our spouses when you feel, because it's okay to feel, it's your emotions, that the apology was not genuine.
Yeah, that brings us to the fact that it's a recurring subject or topic, which is communication.
That's right.
So if you're asking yourself, well, I don't really know when my spouse is really genuine or when they're being truthful about their apology, well, that lets us know that there's still room, there's still opportunities for growth in your marriage with getting to know your spouse. Like, this is a perfect opportunity. If you really are sitting there and you're hearing us today and you're saying, well, I don't really know when it's coming out, when it's truthful for my spouse, then what I challenge you, what we say to you is, then get to know your spouse. Ask the questions that are important to grow that marriage, to get to know them better, and to know where they're coming from, and to know when it's genuine, when it's not. There are spouses that know their spouses so well that just even a facial expression, they will already know whether they're being truthful or not. But that took time. That didn't just happen.
Yes.
They had to have conversation. They had to connect. They had to be intentional about the conversations. That word keeps coming up. Marriage is about being intentional.
Yes.
Intentionality is super important in marriage, People just think like love is just this thing, you know, and the I just feel it in my gut. I feel the butterflies. No, love is hard work.
It takes work, you know.
It really does.
And if you want something that is worth it, then it's going to take work to get there, you know. And I always want to say, if your conflict is bigger than I left my socks in the floor again, or my shoes out, you know, if your conflict is bigger than that, and it's something that perhaps betrayal or anything more, and even you still don't feel that that apology is genuine, or that the person should say more because the offense was greater. Sometimes I want to make sure that spouses know it's beyond that, and we want to make sure that you seek a Christian therapist, you seek a counselor, that you can begin to have those conversations, because sometimes they really don't know where, you know, that apology is not enough, and it can be back history from their childhood trauma and so many other layers. So again, giving your husband or your wife the benefit of the doubt and seeking help when needed, that is so important, even when those conflicts are just beyond just little routine things and it's something even greater in your marriage.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know, the person who's apologizing shares the apology, or wants is asking you know, to be forgiven, and the person who's not accepting the apology could potentially have like you know, trauma from the past themselves, or things that wouldn't allow them to accept that apology. And so, yes, super important that you do seek a Christian counselor, since this is a ministry, this is a Christian-based, faith-based ministry. And so, yes, please, you know, don't shy away from seeking help.
That's right.
We all need support. We all need help with this complicated thing called marriage, or life itself. Humanity is so complex.
That's right.
And we all need to talk to someone, so don't shy away from that. You know, seek your pastor if you need to seek your pastor or leader, but always look for someone that is trusted within the community, and that in many very specific cases, it might just be a professional.
It is. It's sometimes in many cases, because sometimes even the person who was not offended or the offender both have trauma, and that is the real difference why you see the apology in a different perspective than your spouse sees the apology. So perhaps both of you need some healing in your relationship, and that's what we recommend always, to seek a professional for help in regards to untangling and unwrapping all those layers that to get you to a healthy place, but also not just a healthy place in marriage, but also internal healing.
Yeah, they could potentially help they could potentially help the person who's apologizing if the person who's been hurt is saying, you know, your apology is not enough, like I need more. And so sometimes the person who's apologizing may not even have, like, they can't even articulate it. You've been there, I've been there, we've all been there. You know, again, that's why it's important that we show grace for each other, because I've been in places where my wife could say like, well, do you have any explanations? And you're really just saying, I really don't. I don't even know. You know, there's times that I get upset and I'm in a bad mood. You've been there. And somebody asks you, why are you in a bad mood? And literally the only answer you have is, I don't even know. And that's all you have. Just say like, I don't even know. And so sometimes the I don't even know is not that you're being rude or that you don't want to share with people. Is that genuinely you don't know why you are in a bad mood, why you have an attitude. And so going to a therapist, going to a counselor, going to someone could sometimes help bring out what you don't know about yourself.
That's right.
And it clicks in your mind. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that.
Yes, and again, conversations, communicating with each other is so important. That is the only way that as a couple you're going to begin to understand, okay, now I understand why Joel apologizes to me that way. It's not that he just wants to be rude or mean with me. It's just that is just his apology language. And I need to understand that apology language and know that my husband is being sincere. But, you know, before we finish our session, I just want to share with you certain tips of what not to say and when you're in the middle of apologizing to your significant other. So one of the things that we catch ourselves always saying when we're apologizing is saying, I'm sorry that you were offended. I think one of the tips that we want to recommend, you know, when we're apologizing is things what we're not to say when you're apologizing. And then sometimes we find ourselves saying these things as simple as I'm sorry that you were offended. You know, sometimes when we say that word that you were offended, well, we're no ones to judge someone else's emotions or say, you know, that is how you feeling. That is not how I feeling. Another is having you gotten over that already. You know, that is like the worst thing to say to your spouse. It's like, haven't you gotten over that already? Like,
or
can we
get
move
over
on?
it.
Or get over it? Can we move on? Or, oh, I was just joking. You know, it was a joke, honey. You know, like that is also not apologizing or being sincere of your apology. And another one that we hear all the time, oh, it's not a big deal. Why do you take things so personal? Why do you think it's such a big deal? I've
been guilty of that, you know, where to me it's like, you know, because it takes a lot for me to really get upset about something. So I've been guilty of like saying, it's not even a big deal.
Yeah, and I think another one, and it's especially when you have so much going on, is that, well, can you just excuse this one? I really had a bad day, you know? And that's also not a way of apologizing, regardless if you had a bad day. But you catch yourself saying those specific words, and just one of so many we have, but I know our time is short, is that you sound like your mother, or you sound like your father. You know, we typically hear that all the time, and that is not the proper way of apologizing. So all these things that we just share with you is what not to do when you are apologizing to your spouse.
That was really good. That was really good. I really hope you guys enjoy the I Take D ministry episodes and the topics that we bring. You know, I want to challenge, if there's a topic that, you know, perhaps one of you want us to talk about, put it in our message, put it in our, like in some of those comments, put it in our comments. If there's a topic that we could potentially talk about or that we've gone through, we have no problem with sharing that information. Please, you know, follow us again, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's called I Take D Ministry, so you can look for us there. I'm Joel. This is my lovely wife Carla,
Yes.
and we just wanna, you know, just share from our own experiences.
Click share. It's so simple to share, but you don't know how many people you can reach that you also can be that person that can cause healing to that couple. So just click share and continue to come see us for our next episode.
Yes. Thank you again. Until next time.